I am Olivia Parker, and this is the story of how I realized that sometimes family can be your worst enemy, especially in business. For 10 years, I poured my heart and soul into our small family tech company, transforming it from a tiny startup into a $50 million enterprise. But success has a way of exposing the ugliest sides of people, even those who are supposed to be on your side. I remember how it all started when our family business was just a small repair shop in a Seattle mall, barely making ends meet. My father, Robert, had founded it 20 years ago, and despite the struggles, it was his pride and joy. My sister Madison was always the golden child, straight A's, elite business school, daddy's favorite. And I was the quiet one, the one who stayed in the background, helping him while getting my computer science degree at the local college. "Olivia, you're wasting your potential," Madison would say during her visits home from school. "You should be aiming higher." But I saw something in that little shop that no one else did. Potential. While Madison studied theoretical business models, I was learning how the real world worked. I was coding, fixing systems, finding gaps in the market that no one else noticed. In my senior year of college, I developed our first simple but effective inventory management software for small businesses. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was affordable, user-friendly, and met a real need. At first, Dad was skeptical, but when local businesses started buying licenses, his tone changed. "Maybe you're onto something, kiddo," he said. And for the first time, I saw a spark of pride in his eyes. If only I had known how temporary it would be. Under my leadership, the business began to grow. I worked 14-hour days, 7 days a week, putting everything I had into our success. While Madison climbed the corporate ladder at a prestigious consulting firm in New York, I was building something real. Our little shop transformed into a full-fledged software development company, expanding from local clients to national corporations. Mom, Janet, watched me with quiet concern. "Don't work yourself to death, Olivia," she'd say, bringing me dinner at the office. "You need a life outside of this." But I couldn't stop. Maybe part of me was still looking for validation. Or maybe I just wanted to prove I could create something of my own. 5 years after our transformation, we hit our first million in annual revenue. That's when Madison suddenly became interested in the family business again. She quit her prestigious job and came back home. At a family dinner, she made her grand announcement. "I think it's time I take my rightful place in the company," she said, beaming with her trademark confidence. "With my business experience, we can really take this to the next level." Dad practically glowed. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. We could use your professional approach." I sat there, fork suspended in midair, trying to process what was happening. The company I had built from the ground up was now being handed over like some kind of inheritance. I swallowed my objections and pretended everything was fine. Madison was appointed co-CEO, despite having no experience in our industry. Dad insisted it was good for the company's image to have someone with her pedigree at the helm. So while I continued to handle product development and operations, she took over marketing and investor relations. For the next 5 years, our business thrived. But along with it, so did the tension. I kept developing new software, building relationships, and improving our services. Meanwhile, Madison was crafting herself into the face of the company. She gave interviews about being a woman in tech, accepted awards for entrepreneurship, and took credit for innovations she had nothing to do with. Our revenue soared to $50 million, but with it came a power struggle. Madison began excluding me from key meetings, making decisions without my input, slowly and methodically pushing me to the sidelines of my own creation. Then came the night of Dad's 60th birthday. The night that changed everything, of course. The party was Madison's idea. She rented a grand hall in Seattle's most expensive hotel and invited all our business partners. It was less of a birthday party and more of a networking event disguised as a celebration. But that was Madison's style. I arrived in my best black dress. As soon as Madison spotted me, she gave me that disapproving look I'd grown accustomed to over the years. "Couldn't you have made more of an effort?" she hissed. "There are important people here, Olivia." I ignored her and focused on greeting the guests. The room quickly filled with businessmen, politicians, investors, and family friends. Madison worked the room like a politician, shaking hands and flashing her perfect smile. I, as usual, stayed in the background, making sure everything ran smoothly. Dinner was served, and just as I started to relax, Madison clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. I expected the typical speech, maybe a tribute to Dad, some nostalgic childhood memories. Instead, she dropped a bomb that shattered everything. "As we celebrate Dad's 60th birthday," she began, her voice confident and authoritative, "I think it's time to announce some changes at Parker Tech." My stomach clenched. Changes? "The board of directors has agreed that the company needs unified leadership to move forward," she continued. Her words cut through the air like a blade. "Board of directors? What meetings?" flashed through my mind. "For too long, we've been held back by outdated thinking and resistance to change," Madison went on. Her eyes met mine. "That's why, starting today, I'm taking on the role of sole CEO. It's time for certain elements that no longer serve our growth to step aside." A murmur ran through the hall. I sat there, numb, as Madison conducted her corporate execution in front of our entire network. "Some people," she added, her voice dripping with fake sympathy, "are better suited for technical tasks. Olivia has done a decent job maintaining our legacy systems, but in today's fast-paced industry, we need vision, we need excellence. And frankly, Olivia, you're just not cut out for this level of business." I turned to Dad. "Say something. Stand up for me," my eyes pleaded. But he just nodded with a proud smile on his face. Mom, on the other hand, lowered her eyes, her hands trembling slightly on the table. Madison wasn't finished. "The truth is," she said, her voice rising for dramatic effect, "Olivia, you're obsolete in today's business world. Your outdated ideas and lack of formal business education have become a liability. It's time for you to step down gracefully." The silence in the room was deafening. All eyes were on me, waiting for my response. I could feel the pity, the judgment, the unspoken agreement with Madison's words. Everything I had built, every late night, every sacrifice, all of it was being taken away from me in front of everyone. Slowly, I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, the sound cutting through the silence like a gunshot. Everyone expected a scene, maybe tears, shouting. Instead, I simply picked up my purse, walked over to Dad's table, and placed a small wrapped gift in front of him. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said quietly. Then I turned and walked out, head held high, leaving behind the whispers and snickers and the sister who thought she had won. That night, I sat in my home office, surrounded by awards and patents with my name on them. Madison thought she had taken everything from me, but she forgot one crucial detail. Something that would turn her moment of triumph into the biggest mistake of her life. As I powered up my laptop and started typing, a slight smile played on my lips. "Tomorrow will be interesting," I thought. After all, there's more than one way to run a successful business, and in 10 years, I'd learned far more than Madison had in all her fancy business courses. The next morning, the sun rose bright and clear, and with it, everything was about to change. I arrived at the office early, before anyone else, and waited. At precisely 9 a.m., Madison walked through the front doors with Dad, both wearing triumphant smiles that were about to vanish. "Olivia." Madison's voice was a mixture of surprise and annoyance. "What are you doing here? I thought after last night you'd have the dignity to stay home." I smiled, remembering the email I'd sent at 3 a.m. to every major client, partner, and employee of Parker Tech. "Just tying up some loose ends, sister. But since you're here, we should probably talk about the future of the company." "There's nothing to talk about," Dad interjected. His voice was firm. "Madison's in charge now. The board has already approved it." "Ah, yes, the board," I said, pulling out my tablet. "Let's talk about that." I tapped the screen, and the main monitor in the conference room lit up with a document. You see, while Madison was busy planning parties and giving interviews, I was actually building this company. And there are a few things you seem to have forgotten. I opened another document, zooming in for emphasis. First, let me remind you that I own 51% of the shares. The color drained from both their faces. Madison gasped. "That's impossible." "When we incorporated 10 years ago, Dad gave Madison and me 25% each, keeping 50% for himself. But 3 years ago, when we needed capital for expansion, Dad sold me 6% of his shares. Remember that day, Dad? You were too busy attending Madison's award ceremony to handle the negotiations yourself, so you signed the papers without reading them carefully." I clicked again, and the screen filled with legal documents. And that's not all. The core software that generates 80% of our revenue doesn't belong to Parker Tech. It belongs to my personal company. Parker Tech only has a licensing agreement, which expires in... I glanced at my watch. About 10 minutes. Dad collapsed into a chair, realization dawning on him. "The renewal papers," he mumbled. "The ones you asked me to sign last week. The ones I didn't read because I was too busy helping Madison plan the party." "Yes, those papers," I finished for him. "I decided not to file them." Madison's face contorted with rage. "You conniving little..." "Careful, sister," I smoothly interrupted. "You might want to hear the rest before you finish that sentence." I clicked again, and a stream of emails appeared on the screen. "While you were busy announcing my graceful exit last night, I was emailing our clients. You see, most of our major clients have personal loyalty clauses in their contracts. They signed with Parker Tech because of me, my expertise, my track record. Last night, I informed them of the leadership changes and my departure." I zoomed in, showing dozens of responses from our biggest clients. "Want to know how many have already activated their contract termination clauses?" I tilted my head. "Or how many of our top developers, who, by the way, actually work for Innovate Solutions, not Parker Tech, have already accepted job offers at my new venture?" Silence. Through the glass walls, we could see employees gathering, whispers spreading as they checked their emails. Madison frantically pulled out her phone, her perfect composure cracking as she scrolled. "You can't do this," she stammered. "You mean I can't take what's mine?" I said calmly. "You thought you could just take everything because you have an MBA and Dad's approval? You thought you could humiliate me in front of everyone and get away with it?" I stood up, smoothing my dress. "Here are your options." I let my words sink in before continuing. "Option 1. I walk away with my shares, my software, my clients, and my employees. You can explain to all those important people you invited last night why the company's value dropped to 0 overnight. Dad's face had aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. And option 2? He asked weakly. Option 2, you both resign. I took a deep breath and met their stunned gazes with a calm, unwavering look. I take full control of Parker Tech. You both remain shareholders, receiving dividends but having no say in operations. Madison gets a nice severance package and glowing recommendations for her next job. Somewhere far from here. Madison's face turned an interesting shade of red. You planned all this? Didn't you? You were just waiting for the right moment to stab us in the back? I laughed shortly, no humor in it. No, sister. You've both been taking me for granted this whole time. I built this company from the ground up while you collected awards for my work. I planned this. I glanced at my watch again. About 12 hours ago, after you called me useless in front of everyone we know. My phone vibrated. Another client termination notification. Time's running out. What's it going to be? Dad and Madison exchanged glances, communicating silently in that way I'd always hated. Finally, Dad sighed heavily. Olivia, sweetheart, he began, his voice soft, almost pleading. Let's not be hasty. We're family. Surely we can find a compromise. I shook my head. No, Dad. The time for compromise is long past. You both made it clear that I'm not the family you want in this company. Madison seemed to finally grasp the gravity of this situation. Her arrogance disappeared, replaced by desperation. Olivia, please, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said those things last night. Let's just go back to how things were before. Back to how things were. I couldn't hold back a bitter laugh. When you were taking credit for my work, when you were excluding me from important meetings, when you were slowly pushing me out of the company I built. No, Madison, we can't go back to that. I glanced at my watch. You have 5 minutes before I start sending out official departure notices to our partners and investors. Dad straightened up, his face hardening. Are you really willing to destroy everything we've built? Your mother will be devastated. Don't you dare bring Mom into this, I snapped. She's the only one who's always supported me, and I'm not destroying anything. I'm saving what I built from the people who tried to take it away from me. Madison, always quick to recover, tried one more time. Okay, Olivia, you've won. We'll leave. But let's at least discuss terms. Maybe we could stay on as consultants or... No, I said firmly. You'll get your shares and annual dividends. Nothing more. No involvement in the company, no consulting, a clean break. Dad looked defeated. And what do we tell people? I shrugged. The truth. That you decided to retire and hand the company over to me. Or a lie. That you both suddenly discovered a passion for orchid growing and are moving to Hawaii. I don't care. My phone vibrated again. Another notification. Time's almost up. Make your decision. Madison looked at Dad, then at me. Her shoulders slumped. Fine, she whispered. We'll go. Dad nodded, suddenly looking old. Yes, we'll go. I pulled 2 envelopes from my briefcase. Here are your resignation letters. Sign them. They signed, hands shaking. As soon as the ink was dry, I collected the documents. Well, I said, standing up. I guess that's it. Security will escort you out. As they headed for the door, Madison paused. Olivia, she said quietly. I'm sorry. I looked at her. The sister I once adored, the woman who had tried to destroy me. No, Madison, I replied. You're not sorry. You're sorry. You lost." As the door closed behind them, I took a deep breath. 10 years of work, struggle, and sacrifice had led to this moment. I turned to the window, looking out at the Seattle skyline. "Time to start anew," I whispered to myself. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. Did you like the story? Write your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next interesting story. See you tomorrow.